And welcome back to the on-demand video series associated with the final review workshop. Greg Philbeck back with you again. And in this video segment, we're going to be focusing on those must-need-to-know concepts coming out of the topical area of due diligence and selecting managers. As we've been doing throughout this broadcast, we're selecting that subset of the must-need-to-know topics, some of the more challenging topics, and giving you an opportunity to be able to do some practice questions, and at the same time also doing some instruction related to them as well as you're getting ready in your final stages for the Level 2 CAIA exam. Also mentioned this particular segment is going to represent about 8 to 12% of the questions coming from multiple choice that will be tied to this topic. And as we've talked about before, outside of the areas related to emerging topics and ethics, regulation, and ESG, which we know are two of the three essay questions or constructed response questions, that third question can be coming from anywhere, and it can come from multiple topic areas, 3 to 5 sub-questions as a part of each of those three questions. So we're going to get started in the context of the first reading by giving you a chance to practice your knowledge base associated with the phloem example. And again, we'll come back in 5 seconds if you haven't stopped the broadcast, and we'll go ahead and get started with how to solve this problem. So the phloem, or the fundamental law of active management, is the subject under consideration here. And what we have is two managers, manager A and B. They're both active managers, and as we look at the fact that they have the same information ratio, which is the overall framework for assessing active management, we're given two of the three metrics that will be composed with that information ratio. That's the information coefficient and breadth. What we're not given is information related to the third component, which is the transfer coefficient. And as you can see in the question, it says which manager faces the fewer constraints in implementing their active management strategy. So without knowing the three components that make up the information ratio, or the names associated with them. For example, if you didn't know transfer coefficient was associated with the flexibility or the discretionary power of the manager in a constructed response question, you might struggle to get full credit. In a question that would be multiple choice in nature, even if you couldn't remember the title of it, if you knew how to do the calculations and the components that make up, then you would ultimately be in pretty good shape. So how do we go about being able to determine in a situation in which the information coefficient is the same, what the transfer coefficients are, again, on a relative basis? And once again, you know that they have the same information ratio, but you don't know what it is. So we can only talk about the transfer coefficient in relative terms. So what we'll note is that if the information ratio of manager A and manager B are the same, we can equate the three components that make up the information ratio calculation. And in the case of manager A, we recognize that we're dealing with, in this case, an information coefficient of 0.8. The information coefficient